Hello, and welcome to the Spark of Ages podcast. Today's guest is Simon Chou. Simon is a multifaceted marketing leader, podcast host, and community builder. He's the founder of the very popular Marketing on Mars podcast, where he interviews marketers and founders, folks like myself, about their marketing strategies, along with unique hot sauce challenges. So beyond podcasting, Simon advises organizations on leveraging podcasting and LinkedIn for thought leadership and is actively building cool AI capabilities at his firm, Clifford AI. He's also deeply involved in the startup and VC community in Vancouver, fostering connections through his happy hour events and building thriving communities for founders, HR professionals, recruiters, and young tech professionals in Canada. Go Canada. So many people from the Bay Area want to move there. Formerly the CEO of VC Jobs, Simon brings over a decade of global leadership and marketing experience guiding B2B organizations and possesses a wide range of skills from digital networking and content creation to SEO and personal brand building. Some of the key takeaways you can expect from this episode. Number one, insights on building a personal brand through podcasting and LinkedIn. Number two, strategies for growing a podcast audience. Number three, knowledge nuggets from Simon's interviews with an amazing set of marketers. And number four, understanding the key ingredients for creating a strong and engaged community, especially in the digital world. So Simon, welcome to the Spark of Ages.
Can I just bring you everywhere for you to introduce me everywhere I go to at every single event? That was amazing.
I will be your digital announcer. I'm super happy about that.
Or in person. We might meet in person in San Francisco soon. So I'll just bring you everywhere.
That's right. I'm in for that. I'm glad you're visiting. It's great. Like, you have woken up super early. I know you're in South Korea right now because you just go everywhere and you're willing to do anything from anywhere. So thank you for joining me from all the way out there. Before we jump into all this about podcasts, we have a little bit of research to talk about. So interesting about what's happened with podcasts, and I'd love to get your sense on this. 41% of Americans have listened to a podcast on a monthly basis. Most of them are between the ages of 12 and 54. About 55% of the 12 to 34-year-olds listen every month. 50% of 35 to 54-year-olds listen to it monthly as well. And 21% are 55 and older. So it's for really that middle, young to middle segment. So, and where they listen to them, about 49% listen at home, 70% listen using their smartphones, and they listen to it either in the morning, in the afternoon. I mean, it's all day. So, and it's just amazing. The revenue from podcasts forecast to reach over $4 billion by 2024. Ad spend is about $2.5 billion. There are 2.5 million podcasts on Apple Podcast. Only 450,000 of them are active, so a lot of people with intention, hard to follow through. 82% of shows haven't released a new episode in 90 days. So one of the things you're going to tell us about, Simon, is the importance of being consistent. And here's a couple weird facts. Half of podcast listeners use a podcast to fall asleep.
I'm definitely in that camp.
Really? You do? You listen to it fall asleep?
Listen to my own to fall asleep sometimes. Like, this is so boring. I'm going to fall asleep.
I'm too keyed up when I listen to mine. I'm like, how many mistakes did I make? How many screw-ups? How many ways can I improve? It's very stressful for me. 54% of those listeners remember an ad the next day. So if you're a marketer and you advertise on these things, it can be incredibly effective, especially if the host is doing the ad. Which is what you do with your hot sauce takes, which I think works really well for that brand. And 37% of B2B podcasts are content marketing for B2B topics. 37% are content marketing, and content distribution is 25%. And so podcast listeners are nearly as likely to listen to a branded podcast as they are to a celebrity show. So that's pretty amazing. In terms of platforms, and we'll get into some of this, YouTube is number one as of Q3 2024. 30% of podcast listeners chose YouTube, followed by Spotify 29% and Apple Podcast 15%. Podcast marketing and branding. Podcasts lift brand awareness by 89%. 85% of companies capture video, and 65% of branded podcast showrunners share short clips at least once a week. And I know you're a big fan of that.
Oh yeah, huge.
So
yeah, I'll try to remember as many of those stats as possible. But certainly some of the ones that stood out to me, YouTube definitely is our top channel. I think it's because every single channel has its own purpose. For LinkedIn, we use it as kind of like our resume. So we always want to show our best. It's always our best foot forward. So a lot of LinkedIn posts and content that's posted on LinkedIn are very filtered.
Yeah.
Twitter is like kind of the renegades and don't want to listen to the, kind of against the rule kind of thing, like free speech and all that. And so the stuff on Twitter is highly unfiltered, and they hate stuff that is filtered. And when I say they, I mean the people that are, the biggest users of Twitter now, called X. YouTube is where you learn. I think it's where you learn, but in a educational way. I think, which is why podcasts do well, because podcasts like yours and like many podcasts, think about the most popular podcasts that you listen to. They're educational, but they're entertaining in some way or fashion. I chose to put in hot sauce, hot takes as an entertainment factor. Other even very successful people. Think about Elon Musk. When you think about Elon Musk, you think about that interview with Joe Rogan, right? Yep. It's educational but entertaining, and that's why YouTube does really well.
That's cool. And YouTube's a place where when you go there, you're willing to listen for a while, right? You get on it and you're willing to listen. And there's the expectation of longer form content, which is very different from TikTok, where you still may spend a lot of time, 90 minutes, but you're watching 30-second or 15-second
maximum
videos.
Yeah.
So that hasn't been one of your favorite places to go, right?
We've tried on TikTok, and the clips that does well on TikTok, not surprisingly, are the hot sauce takes. They're only in it for the hot sauce. They just want to be entertained.
Chug a hot. So you make them. The interesting part about you is if someone doesn't answer the question, like when you ask them how much they make, I think that's the one where you get them. They have to chug hot sauce.
Yeah. So like literally hot takes, because as a host, and you probably run into this all the time. It's like, what can I ask so that won't offend them or won't get them to, not answer? Because I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. Right. Now I kind of spun that around, and I'm like, now as a host, I don't have to think about that anymore. And you and I have had several conversations, so I've told you there's nothing that's off limits for me.
That's one thing I like about it. You're gutsy about that. You ask people how much they make or what their revenues are. And for private companies, a lot of people don't want to talk about that. So that's where you get them to drink some hot sauce, and it's kind of fun.
Like how much does do you guys make Position Square?
Oh, we if you look at our taxes, we're probably about $100 million company.
But revenue, top line. Bottom line would have been a little crazy.
That would have been a little harder, but I'm a private company. But we invest a lot into building our own AI platforms. So
nice.
So why make money when you can put it in a technology that can really change the world, which was what I'm about. So one thing I like about your podcast is you have had, like tons of great CMOs on there, right? So CMOs of like Zoom Info, one of the guests that we got, Alice Crowder, Crispy Crunchy Chicken. She was freaking awesome on ours.
She's amazing.
I love having her there. She was episode 25 for us. For you, I think it was episode 100. We had Melissa Rosenthal of Outlever, formerly CDO or Chief Design Officer or Chief Creative Officer of ClickUp. So she was episode 26. And I know you had her and Alice on a multi-person episode along with the CMO of Headspace. So you've got some great folks coming on your show. Same thing, Zoom Info. So how do you get these folks?
Personal brand, I think, is the biggest thing. So I've been very intentional. Like I knew that when I started my podcast, my number one goal was to build a personal brand. It wasn't to generate revenue. It wasn't even to get a lot of views. I didn't set out. I started one podcast in the beginning of COVID, and like it took off, but it didn't take off like Marketing on Mars. And so I knew how challenging it would be to get viewership. Like viewership wasn't going to be the number one metric for me. And it's funny. Now we're doing quite well in terms of viewerships. But when we first started,
you were talking like what? You're getting tens of thousands of views per episode.
Yeah, on YouTube we get each per episode we get 3,000 to 6,000, sometimes 25,000 for like a really good episode. Spotify, we get a ton of downloads from there. And yeah, like we get a lot of viewership on LinkedIn as well. I made a post recently, and this was like a month ago now, made one post that got 100,000 impressions.
Wow.
And that was with Henry Shi from Super.
That's a very recent one, right? I mean, that was quite recent. Yeah. That's the one you were talking about, the $150 million from super.com. So well known. And so you just reached out to him and he said yes, right? Because they've heard of you.
Yeah. So I can kind of walk through the process, but yeah, built a brand on LinkedIn so that when I reach out, pre-podcast, I think my acceptance rate, my cold outreach to acceptance rate was like, I'll get one response in every 20 messages or 25 messages. Now it's like one response in every 5 or 6. So the response rates have gotten really, really high. And it's because I've built a brand on YouTube and LinkedIn. And I really focus on the channels. Like back to what you were saying, TikTok didn't work for us. So we stopped posting on TikTok. Twitter didn't work for us. So we stopped posting on Twitter. And I think just find out which audience, which platform has your audience. And my audience, I was catering towards junior to intermediate marketers, or just marketers in general. Like we have marketers listening to us from junior to intermediate all the way to senior level marketers, and they're all on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn for me, I knew had to be the channel. Had to be really important for you because you had to nail that. That's a known audience, so you can actually go back and when they comment, you can actually figure out who they are, right? As opposed to YouTube where it's hard to tell. So as part of your growth strategy, is that how you kind of did this? You put out content, you waited for feedback, and then you built it that way? Or did you have to, I mean, I was told basically you had to have a number of podcasts just to establish that you're there. Right. So you almost blow off the first 20 or 25. In fact, I was told wait till 100 before you have anything. How do you think about it, or how did you think about it? Okay, so I started one podcast during COVID, 2020 to 2022. That one took us like 25 I think it was 25 or 27 episodes before we broke 1,000 downloads. And in terms of viewerships, same thing. Like we were hovering around. We would post on YouTube and we would get 50 views or 20 views per episode, and it's very very common. So it didn't take off until like episode 20 something. For us, I wanted to not play that game anymore. So I really wanted to focus on the quality of the guests. Yeah. And so the second podcast, Marketing on Mars, we started late 2022, so around 2023. So it's been like a year and a half, almost 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And our show took off around episode 18 when we brought on Microsoft on the show. So we got an exec member.
It was like a CMO of Microsoft Teams.
VP of Teams. Like he was the one who created Microsoft Teams, where you and I met on Teams like recently.
There we go.
This guy started the whole thing. So we brought him on the show. He talked about the journey of building it and growing from 0 to 500 million downloads. And obviously for a company like Microsoft, it wasn't too difficult. And then from there, we got the CMO of Alo Yoga and then the CMO of Barbie. That episode did really well for us.
That must have popped, right? Because I find this like I was mostly doing B2B stuff, and that's because that's what we focus on. We do a lot of B2B, but we also do some B2C. But the B2C topics are easier for people to approach. So if you're talking to Alice about crispy crunchy chicken and chicken sandwiches,
so much easier.
Everyone can relate to that, right? So Barbie must have been like the shared experience is massive.
and we posted it a week and a half after Barbie was released.
Clever.
So that one had like 50 something downloads, 50,000 downloads on YouTube alone.
Wow.
And then on Spotify we had like 2,000 downloads. Sorry, 50,000 views. And then on and I hate how every single platform uses different things,
different metrics all over the place. Downloads versus views.
Yeah, I find views and impressions are pretty similar in terms of a metric, and then downloads are it's quite separate. And you and I can probably relate to this on Spotify. Their download metrics they get updated quite often. Mm-hmm. That's been my number one challenge with Spotify is figuring out what my actual numbers are. They tend to update them quite often.
What do you care about the most? Like, what if you were to go through a cycle of, if you were to turn this into a framework, and you probably, as you're going along, you're probably experimenting as you go, and it's probably not this perfect little consulting framework. But if I were to force you to do one, what would it be?
I just focus on who comes on the show.
Got it. Your number one thing is get great people.
Get great people, and I do have a metric, and I can share this. My metric is companies have to be making $100 million plus in revenue.
Okay.
And the reason why, I have a reason for that. Companies that are making $100 million plus, and you kind of fall into that category, is typically when you're at that scale, you have a very large team. Mm-hmm. And when you have a very large team, we can do collaboration. We can both work together to push the episode. Right. Whereas if I'm getting, in the early days, I was getting on founders and CMOs who had like a team of 15. So even if they push this episode that we're recording right now to their team, maximum they'll get 15 or 20 views additional.
Right. Because their team's the only one. Yeah.
Exactly. But if
unless
you had
they have a great voice in a community, right? So,
Yes.
But even then, it's probably not as professionally run. And I've seen this with some folks where after they go from the big company to doing their own thing, if they can't continue that voice, when they post again, it's not as resonant.
This is a very good point. Yeah, like a lot of us, and unfortunately I don't fall into this camp, but a lot of people, they spend 10, 15, 20 years in one company, and then their identity is with this one company. And I actually just spoke with someone recently who worked for one of the big FANG companies. I'm not going to name which company. Worked there for 15, 20 years. Built a very solid brand, like very, very high up. But recently started thinking maybe I should build my network outside and prepare for the future. Like we just saw, I don't know how many of your listeners are basketball fans. Luka Doncic got traded for Anthony Davis, and who would have thought? Like you're high up, but you still can get traded. Same thing for at a big company. You regardless how high up you are,
and you could leave for any reason, or things cannot work out, and you move to another place, and then you start all over again, right? And so, and you're talking about this, it brings up the question, right? So you've talked about, we were talking about podcasts and the community and growing the podcast, but you've also done community building, not just around your podcast, but through events like your happy hour, right? So, and you've done a lot, especially in that BC area or in Vancouver, about building that strong, engaged community. I think that a lot of your first efforts were around that. And so talk about the key ingredients that you have in terms of building that a really strong and engaged community, and then relate it to the digital world.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about your community as well. I mean, you have a community, that I like. I mean, I'm sure both of our learnings are quite similar, and it's just very hard to build an engaged community. It's very, very hard. And even today, like we're still learning. When I first started running events, I was running events for 30 to 50 people. It grew to 100 plus people per event. But then over time, people always want new.
Yeah.
People always want excitement and fun. It's just what we live for. So if you always constantly run into the same events, which is what I was doing, it was engagement, exciting. And then it started to be like, we started seeing like the number of people that were returning to the events kind of fade. And especially when you're running events for founders and executives, they always want to meet new people. They're there for one purpose, is to network and grow their network. So if you're constantly seeing the same people, so even if you got a lot of returning people, if they're seeing the same people over and over and over again, they're not going to see as much value in the. So I thought I was doing a good thing with return visitors and returning members, but that actually wasn't the right metric. And so it was just this constant back and forth. And so nowadays we're doing a lot of poker. Poker seems to resonate really well with founders.
And it's something fun. You could do without being specifically about networking, right?
Exactly.
Like if you go to an event and it's just about networking, then the people who go are the connectors and not necessarily the content creators or the thought leaders, right? Unless they're trying to promote their content. But you're not going to get some of those people that have really special things to add because they're like, oh, I got to go to a freaking networking event.
Yeah.
This really sucks. So the only time they go is when they're out of a job.
Exactly. And you don't want those kind of people. Like that's not
if you get a whole bunch of people, then you just have networkers talking to networking about networking. No, I mean, so that, we've talked about this in one of my other episodes, but we have our growth marketing summit, and that's an invitation only small event. It's very different than the bigger events that I do, that we do as a company, or I do in association with this group called the Go-to-Market Leader Society with my friend AJ Gandhi and my friend Eli Cohen. So that's one group is about hitting some level of scale, as well as private dinners and that kind of thing. And then we have our own special one, which is just people invite only, a special core group of people that are content creators or thought leaders or CEOs. And it's just very special because it's a small group and it's over 4 days and we're in a compound together. It's expensive. But I'm really happy that group has done a lot of work together, done a lot of business together, put each other in each other's boards. It's just recommend investments together.
And what is your North Star? I find that every great community leader has a North Star. Like for me, my North Star has always been keep it fun, keep it light.
Yeah.
So every single event has to be like, what was yours?
Well,
or what is yours?
I'd say it goes to my purpose, which is connecting great souls. So I, just like you talked about, I just want to meet with high quality people and do and learn. For me, it's very similar. I just want to be around around great people and put them together. And fulfillment for me is them establishing great connections with each other. So that's the goal. And of course, we're going to measure it later on, was there revenue or business or whatever, but you can't do that as the immediate output. You have to basically look at it as you know what, I'm going to do this for 3 or 4 years and then see what I get out of it. And that's a very expensive way of doing things, but you can tell because things eventually work itself out or don't.
Yeah.
And if they don't, drop it. But give it time.
If you start dating, you're 20 something, you start dating because you want a marriage and you approach every single date like you have a marriage certificate on the table and you're ready to sign it.
Right.
I think that's a very different approach than if you're dating to just try to find the right person and you're open to meeting different types of people. And I think playing the long game sometimes works in your favor. You sometimes get a lot of things happen in a faster way than you would have originally thought. But I
totally agree with you on that. There are times where there might be people that I really want to talk to at an event, but I know that they may be coming back to another one. This happened a lot in COVID. A whole bunch of us were getting together, and I wouldn't try to overdo it. You don't want to just go in and come in hot and say, "Hey, let's go work together." It's like, just get to know them, make them, see if they're someone that could be your friend. And then things will happen. I'd say some of my best friends are people I just met at things over time. And I just looked at them like, I'm going to be friends with this person someday. I wasn't too, like you're saying, forward about it. It just sort of happened.
And you have quite the network in SF. I think it just goes back. I think good podcasters and good brand builders are just naturally good people,
Yeah.
Just I think there's something to be said about that. Um, yes, you might be very smart or hardworking or whatever. Like you have a lot of things going for you, but at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, you got to be some decently good with people to
You have
have
to
a very
really, you
strong
have to
brand.
kind of like, you have to like them. Right. And I think
Yeah,
that's, so like if you were to relate that to, you said this is about some of this, a lot of this is about personal branding, right? Um, was there a personal brand that you were looking to build and there's an archetype that you were looking for as part of it? And like you said, what did you talked about not trying to go for the kill in the first meeting. Did you find that there were specific ways that when you watch people, how they are able to be authentic and impactful?
yeah. So I was very lucky to have actually one of my mentors. He's based in Vancouver, and he also has an agency. They do over 150 mil in revenue as well. And when I watch him talk, and it's not that I was trying to be him, but a lot of what he's taught me, and you can't be someone. You have to learn from someone else and kind of take it and do it in your own way. But the way he has said it was very similar to you. It's like you're just trying to build good relationships with people, and if business comes out of the relationships, great. But at the end of the day, business is a person to person, it's a human to human connection.
Right.
So you got to be able to start with that first, and business will come second. And that really resonated with me and how I approached my personal brand. Just, but I would say I kind of skew way far left into the non-selling category,
I see.
which is why I find I've been able to build a stronger community than most people in Vancouver, and so we've expanded to Seattle and San Francisco. Is I'm just like very focused on community and what just giving 10, 15x,
Yeah.
and maybe the one will come back. But I think because I've skewed so far into the giving category, I haven't been taking as much. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's what I'm trying to learn this year is how to be a better salesperson and how to
I,
sell
you know,
myself a little stronger.
I think it's great to give, and they encourage that. But I think when to your point, like if you're always in the giving mode, sometimes people don't realize they got to take care of you too. And
Yeah.
I think it's okay to ask for the order sometimes.
And it's not their responsibility
And I think a
to
lot of
care
so
for
there's
you.
this notion, and I can't remember where I got it from, but it's like sometimes when you present yourself as everything's great, they don't know that you may need help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or that
Mm-hmm.
there's ways they can help you, or they want to find ways, but you're not telling them that. So there's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with at some point saying, "Hey, I'd like to get some more business for my company. I'd like to do this. Can you help me?" And but that can come later after you've, like you say, you've given a bunch of times.
Yeah. I wish there was like a little AI angel on my shoulder, just be like, hey, you've given 15 times to Rajiv now. Maybe it's time to ask.
But
Like,
you're
I
gonna
wish there
get.
was something like, you know what I'm saying? I don't have that. It's not in my blood. And I think I'm working through that.
Yeah.
It's like a giving therapy.
Would you say that's like something you grew up with? Is that something you got from your parents or from your
Yeah,
you
I
grew
think
up
so. Like
with?
my mom, she grew up as a single mom,
Oh wow.
raising me and my younger brother. So a lot of it was just giving to us and not asking
Hmm.
for anything.
Yeah.
Um, but after many years, she realized she had to take care of herself as well. But it just took a long time
Yeah.
to get there. And so I think I'm kind of I'm going through the process right now,
Yeah.
and I'm in my early 30s right now,
Hmm.
and I think this is a good time to start. And so I started a couple of startups in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and I think it's good to start asking for the order, right? This is maybe a good time to start asking for the order from the folks you've met. So if you were to go you have this podcast that has done well over 1 million views or downloads or impressions, right? I think 1 to 2 million, done really
I think
well.
we just reached 2 million views and
Wow.
down 2 million views and downloads. We do like some kind of conversion with
Yeah.
downloads to views. There's usually
Nice.
about 4 views equals to one download.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. It's yeah, and you've built up a great audience. You're in the marketing world. You've started but you're also building technology through AI. So, what's a
Mhm.
day in the life of Simon Chou?
Yeah. So the podcast has gotten to over 100 episodes now, so it kind of runs on its own. I spend very little time on it. We have a small little team. We have a
Mm-hmm.
sponsor, All Gear Digital. Shout out to All Gear Digital. They
Nice.
they they, they raise money. They raise like 50 something around $50 million, and they became like a private equity firm of some sort. So they just bought a bunch of assets.
Mm-hmm.
And so they own like over 20 different sites, and
Nice.
they just buy these sites that are in different verticals, usually on the outdoor gear vertical, and they just kind of
Yeah.
take it all in house, and then
Mm-hmm.
they'll share resources, and so
Nice.
they've done really well in that sense, and so they're our main sponsor. But yeah, like that the podcast runs on its own. I spend a lot of time nowadays brainstorming with potential clients, and users of AI,
Right.
and we found a niche right now with non-tech industries. So
Yep.
I'm talking to a couple of companies. I'm talking to one is in the dental area.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a founder owner of 3 different dental clinics. They know nothing about AI, and they're trying to revolutionize their tool stack. They went to CES and they were mind blown about AI, and they were
Right.
just thinking, what can we do with AI to automate a lot of our repetitive tasks?
Yeah.
And so we're working with them right now, and then a law firm as well. One of my friends, he owns a crypto law firm. They have over 200 clients, so they're busy. They're very, very busy.
Especially in crypto, there's a lot of law.
A lot of law, and so much of a lawyer, a paralegal's task especially,
Mm-hmm.
are just pushing, renaming emails and pushing emails.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot of well with law you have to really nail, you can't make mistakes. So it's very granular, but I'm sure there's a lot of repetitive tasks. My son is a lawyer, so I've learned quite a bit from him, but I have a lot of friends that are. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are revenue generating tasks like that where you can't screw up
Mm-hmm.
the law, but then there are just small repetitive tasks,
Mindless stuff, right? Yeah.
mindless things
Yeah.
that you shouldn't pay a lawyer $300 an hour for. And so
Yeah.
if you can remove those tasks, automate that so that you can focus on more revenue generating tasks and
Mm-hmm.
more client facing tasks, I think that
Yeah.
can be very good for law firms, for
That's
retention,
awesome.
client
So you're
retention,
building tools
etc.
for that area.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the secret. That's what AI is going to unlock us. It's going to give us a lot more time for revenue, client facing. We're going to be able to connect more in person,
That's
doing things
great.
like this, because
Yep.
all the repetitive, mindless things will all be automated away, which is unfortunate for a lot of jobs, like data analysts, for example.
Right.
Even developers, if people are saying like the number of developers required will be reducing. Salesforce came out, Mark Benninghoff came out and
Right.
said
The
that
whole agentic agent force, right?
yeah, and
Agent force, they're
they're
building
not
it
hiring
complete. Yeah.
anymore.
No.
They're not
Well,
hiring
they
any more
don't.
engineers.
Satya Nadella is saying, and he's saying SaaS applications are going to die, but really he means transform to more of an agentic set of capabilities. They'll still need to access applications, but they'll be using these agents as a way of functioning and driving things forward. So you're working in that world, but you're applying it to small and mid-sized businesses, which is I think is a great place to go, because then you can build scale, right? Probably through a lot of the marketing that you've learned by interviewing all these great people.
Yeah, and I think, but you've been through this. You've been
Yeah.
through like the rise of. Remember the website when the website first
Yeah.
came out, and it's like everyone wasn't sure how to build a website. A website cost $10,000 to build.
Right.
Now it's like it's everyone can build it for under $400 if you really wanted to. But back
Yeah.
then there were no options.
Well, you
It's
could
kind
do a
of like
very template based one. My company would not do a $400 website, so we don't
exactly.
want. If you want that, we don't want you. But
Yeah. Yeah, but there wasn't even that option
that
back
wasn't even
then.
that option. Now there's
It wasn't even an
amazing
option.
templates coming out that you could
Exactly.
build for it. So yes,
Doesn't work for a lot of people, but then
Yep.
there's at least there's a low level, and then there's also the high customized level, and that's what we're seeing with the agentic. It's kind of opening this new world where things can be automated for, if you really wanted to, $150 a month if you really wanted to,
if you really
or
want
you
to.
can get. But if you wanted to be customized with your entire flow, you're probably gonna have to pay $10,000, $15,000.
And I think the higher end. And by the way, there's firms that will pay millions of dollars for it, but the higher end is really more about massive scale. So if you are
Absolutely.
Google Cloud Security, you've got thousands of pages, you have a lot of content, you are around the world, different products have to be nailed, and have to work across multiple devices, multiple places. So but you're going after scale. And I think like to your point, the new website will not be a single, like, oh, here's my homepage. It's really custom to you. And I think
Exactly.
that's the important part.
We're building an AI solution right now for BC Jobs, and BC Jobs, company that I used to work for. I mean, I'm still there. I stepped down as CEO. I'm an advisor now, and still advise the day to day. And right now they're building an agentic flow to manage their whole stack.
Yeah.
They've been around for 15 years, so they have some of their stack flow. They're using .NET still, coding language that's like ancient nowadays. So what AI solution nowadays will be able to integrate with all these different? I think their total stack has like 20 different solutions.
Yeah.
One has to talk to another, has to talk to another, has to talk to another. How do you build an what AI workflow can help them? And the answer is none. They have to build it. They have to build it kind of customized.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're working through. To your point.
That's
to your point,
cool.
like that lower
you have to
level
build it
AI workflow.
You have to build it you have to build it custom to your situation, and that's what's going to matter. I also think, like you're saying, is that there's going to be multiple buyers when someone goes to buy something B2B. It even happens B2C, but you have to customize the sale, and that customization or enabling it to switch and customize and pick different points of the buying journey. That's where the complexity comes in, and that's where AI can be helpful. And of course, when you do that, you have to run experiments. So there's tons to do. All right. So I have a question. Yeah. So did you know you always wanted to work in marketing? Was there a moment that just got you that said, this is my field? Did it come from your mom? Did it come from friends? How'd you discover it?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think you just kind of, I don't know.
Because you have a finance degree, right?
Yeah, I had a finance degree, and then I worked in crypto. So I worked at Litecoin. I helped Litecoin. I don't know how many of your listeners know Litecoin. It's, they're not so relevant now, but they were really relevant between 2016 to really up to like 2019, 2020, until the owner Charlie decided to sell a lot of his coins, and then and just a lot of things didn't get built out, and the public lost interest in them. But I built community for them from between 2017 to like the end of 2018.
Oh wow!
And so from finance to crypto, but I did mostly marketing there. Yeah. I did community building. Nice. And so that was like my kind of intro into marketing. I didn't fully immerse myself into marketing, but I was touching crypto community, and crypto communities are like heavy on PR, heavy on influencer marketing. And so I touched a little bit of that. Yeah. And then from that, when I left crypto after the crash of 2018, I jumped right into B2B SaaS. And I don't think it's not like I didn't think I was going to be I was like a born marketer or whatever. It was just like a couple of roles that were available at the time. And I got really lucky and joined a marketing agency, and that agency, I ended up being one of the early founders of it. and it grew from you know, six figures to
Yeah.
high seven figures. I think we at the end of it, we exited for, you know, multi seven figure.
That's awesome. So you fell in
so
love with
yeah.
marketing, and you moved from finance, got you the crypto job, but then you found your passion in marketing.
And
Super cool.
Isn't that crazy how life works? Like
Yeah.
for you, like how did everything start for you?
I graduated with a degree in engineering. I was writing code. I was going to do electromagnetic fields and waves, but I fell in love with. I did a marketing internship while I was in college, and I fell in love with that more than writing code. And then I went into enterprise sales after college, selling technology. So after that, got to B school, went into product management and marketing, eventually started companies. And that's how I fell in love. And I love marketing. I love connecting people together. I love innovation, love technology, and I like figuring out how those great disruptors can find their market.
Isn't that crazy?
It's really,
like it sounds, when you say it out loud, it sounds crazy, but like that's just how your life journey went, and it's crazy how life takes you into different directions.
Welcome to the Spark Tank, where we spark unexpected connections in the minds of technology's most innovative thinkers. Today, we're joined by Simon Chou, a digital storyteller who's transformed community building into an art form. From running Western Canada's leading job board to hosting spicy conversations on his show, Marketing on Mars. This is the Spark of Ages custom-built game where community meets creativity, where digital networking collides with authentic storytelling, and where the next breakthrough might emerge from an unexpected word association. Our brains are pattern matching machines, constantly drawing connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. Sometimes the most groundbreaking innovations come from these spontaneous neural leaps, from content creation to community building, from digital marketing to authentic leadership. And today, we're going to tap into that creative chaos. This is the ultimate word association challenge, where every response could unveil a new perspective. So here's how it works. I will start with a marketing-related word, and Simon, you'll respond with the very first word that pops in your mind. No filtering, no second guessing. I know you'll do well at this. Then I'll respond to your word, and then we'll keep this neural chain reaction going. The only rule is spontaneity. Let your mind make those unexpected leaps. So, ready to see where your synapses take us, Simon?
I'm worried.
Did I freak you out with all that banter? Okay, let's go. This is going to be really easy word association. We're going to have a blast with this. All right, first word. Paradigm.
Shift.
Leap.
Frog.
Crypto.
Decentralization.
Blockchain.
Security.
Trust.
Human.
I like that. So we end up being human from starting about paradigm. I love that. All right, here's the next one. This is going to be a favorite of yours. LinkedIn.
Oh man, I have so many words.
Go.
Community. I'll say community.
Community. Connections.
I'll say IRL. It's more like three words into one, but
that's fine. You can do a phrase. IRL. Events.
Lighthearted.
Friendships.
Effort.
Consistency. All right. I like that one. That's a good one. Here's another word association game. Vancouver.
Rainy.
Flowers.
Smell.
Meadows.
Exercise.
Exercise. Do you exercise in the rain a lot in Vancouver?
Oh my god! Every single day, like it feels like an exercise. Because then I don't know. You got to do so much. You're wearing boots, so you're like kind of everything is heavier. I don't know. Yeah. You're wearing a jacket. Everything is just heavy. I'm not a really outdoorsy person.
You're not.
If you haven't already taken note of that, I'm usually indoors, podcasting, working.
All right. Here's the last one. Hot sauce.
Marketing on Mars.
I love it. All right. That nails it. You win that game. Consistency. All right. I like that one. That's a good one. All right. What's the first word that pops in your mind when you hear, when you get negative feedback on an episode?
I gotta consider it. Yeah, it's like at the end of the day, we're all different. We're all human. There's a reason why that person said something, and you have to just try to figure out if that is real or not. I know in the beginning you might not fully understand why they said what they said,
Mm-hmm.
but the more research you do, I think the more you understand.
Okay, so what are some of the best knowledge nuggets you've taken away from your show, and who are the folks who dropped them?
I mean, this is pretty fun doing this. I mean, it's not my show, but I'm having these conversations and
I
we're
could
talking
chat with you all
about,
day, Simon. You're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Best nuggets. Oh my God. Honestly, I learned from every single episode. I just learned something different from every single episode. Like on the episode with Melissa Rosenthal, she, at ClickUp, she spent a lot of money on billboards. So yes. I learned a lot about how billboards.
I really like that point that she made about, because that is not what B2B marketers think about, is building their brand through billboards. So I think that was counterintuitive, and how she in that episode talked about how she made it performance driven too. They could tell by the places they put the billboards versus they did their own A/B testing by putting in certain places versus not in other places. And they also used it as a clever competitive thing. So that was a good one out of that episode.
Yeah, and I'm sure there was a lot of things that were not trackable, but they did their best. And when they calculate their blended, a lot of big companies do this, right? They do blended CPA.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that are untrackable where you spend $50,000 on this marketing initiative and you have no idea where to track it. You just put a blended cost in marketing, and at the end of the day, it worked. So that was really cool to dive into it, and I did ask some spicy questions around that.
And I think to your point, like performance marketers, sometimes there are performance marketers that are too performance marketing, meaning there has to be a direct response to the campaign right away, as opposed to looking at it as a lag and trying to measure based on that. So if I do TV advertisement, does it drive it may not initially drive people to buy from me, but eventually it should lower my cost of acquisitions because people see my brand and they know, okay, it's time to, then I go to buy. Right.
Yeah. And like how many of the ads that we see nowadays are we already numb to anyways?
Yes.
Like when was the last time you clicked into an ad? How often per year?
I rarely
just think about it.
Other than maybe Facebook, where they know me pretty well and they know I like tech kind of stuff, clever tech stuff, I rarely click on ads. But nowadays, the B2B advertisers have gotten better at knowing what I'm interested in, the content I'm interested in, the things I'm interested in learning. So sometimes I do click to download something, but it's rare. It's rare. But I don't think that should be the purpose. I think that's just about building an impression about your brand.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about awareness.
Yeah. Like the folks at Coca-Cola are not fools, right? They're pretty bright people, and they know that even though this is something you drink all the time, you have to keep the brand in front of your face. So they always put everything in terms of that Coke bottle, even on the can, right? They put a Coke bottle and they put it everywhere, right? I one time I was in Machu Picchu, like we were on a 5-day hike. There was no humans around, and a woman walked up to us with on her head a bunch of cold Cokes and sold it to us, right? I was like, oh my God, Coke even gets here. I mean, this is the most incredible marketing distribution company in the world.
Yeah.
So anything else that popped in your head of like one of your, maybe a recent guest?
Ooh, we had a recent guest that, they do about $600 million in revenue. They are in the healthcare space, health carousel, and they basically help hospitals all over the U.S. staff them with nurses, short-term nurses, long-term nurses.
Yeah.
And talked a lot about that and the process and just building. A lot of it is just like building culture, right? And like how do you market to nurses? And it's got me thinking.
So you mean it's like recruitment marketing of professionals?
Yeah. Where do you
That's a
market?
huge problem, by the way. We have a number of these health organizations, multi-location health, and that is an important side of their business, what you're talking about.
And nurse shortages are all over right now.
Yes.
All over. And
Yeah.
so how do you get these temp nurses to be able to come in and work for a few hours on call?
Yep.
That's a very difficult task right now. How do you target these nurses?
Was there some technique that they used that really stuck in your head?
They would host these, they would engage with the nurses. They would host these big nurse kind of parties where they would get their nurses to, they realized that the best way to meet nurses is that nurses know other nurses. And so they would host these parties, and you would just bring another nurse friend, and they would do these quarterly, and they would run these all across North America. They found that was the easiest way. Because like if you think about it,
was it a social mixer or continuing ed kind of thing?
Yeah, just mixers, and they just keep it fun, and they try to keep those non-educational, right? And just more about fun, because they realize that I mean, there's some portions of continue ed as well, so you can like learn things, but then there's also like these fun mixers, and they really focus on that element, because they knew that was what would draw the nurses out. And it's like it was just interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think this gets to our point about the notion of creating great experiences for people. So that is marketing, is creating great experiences for your target market. And once they have that great experience, they associate that experience with you. And when the time comes to buy, they'll think about your company, right? That's the most important thing.
I had talked to another company, and they not this current company, but worked for a different company that sold earbuds. And when you think about earbuds, where do you use these earbuds? They have a variety of different earbuds for different purposes, for sleep, for for when you're on the plane, for different purposes. But the one that really put them on the map was they created one earbud for music experiences.
Oh, wow.
And so they became the main sponsor of Ultra Music Festival in Belgium. And I think a lot of people might already know this brand now, but before they did this campaign, they were like struggling with ad spend and everything, but this put them on the map because they got in front of 200,000 people or 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And everyone, they just passed a lot of these for free. Just free. Here you get one, you get one.
Give it to the top influencers in that field and have them use it.
Everybody started posting about it.
Or just had a big event. Yeah.
Yeah, it just became free influencer marketing.
Yeah.
So shout out to Loop. Now they're all over Korea, Japan. They're all over now. But it was just like figuring out what was going to be who are going to be your ultra fans, people that are just going to be your biggest fans. And that even though they targeted the music vertical, that grew into every other vertical. They were thinking, would sleep be our best product line? Yeah. Would it be music? Would it be whatever? And then they figured out that one vertical that was going to be your best. And I think that is what we should all try to figure out, is what's our number one channel.
Number one channel, number one influencer, number one. Yeah, I mean, I think your point is like people who are the best influencers or market of sound love music, right? And they are audiophiles. It's hard to get someone that's going to influence you about sleep, right? But
you'll get bored. I think you'll get bored. You might fall asleep.
Yeah, I sleep really well, but it's hard to get really motivated. Maybe you're like a sleep doctor or sleep something.
But even then, when was the last time we followed a sleep doctor? I mean, unless you have horrible sleep. And if you have horrible sleep, you probably want to listen to a sleep apnea or like an actual specialist, not like
music. Music is like community sharing. It's awesome. So that's brilliant. That's brilliant, knowing your market and getting to that. Okay, I love these examples. Where do you see the future of podcasting in terms of building community and fostering deeper connections? Are there any trends or technologies you think will play a significant role?
I think it's so many people already have their own podcasts. I think it's not going to change with AI technology now, anyone can edit their podcast really quickly, really cheap as well. We definitely leverage a lot of that on our show.
Right.
Equipment is getting better. Like I have this whole setup. This is my traveling setup.
Yeah.
My traveling setup. I bought this whole set for under $1,000. It's never been cheaper. It's never been easier to start a podcast. I think a lot of people will have it. Whether they make it past 20 or 30 episodes, like you said, it's that's up for debate.
That's discipline, right? I mean,
that's just discipline.
And
that's
hard.
always existed. That's always existed.
Yeah.
Whether it was blogs from the 90s to websites to all the channels have evolved, and now it's podcast is the big thing. But on the flip side, because there are so many podcasts, it never has been easier to stand out.
That's right.
If you're a very good podcast host, which you are, and you have great guests on your show, it's inevitable after X number of episodes that it will do well. And maybe it is just to build brand, like the way I do it, or maybe it blows off and then you become, you start getting sponsorships and you start getting all that. But that should never be the goal. I personally feel that a podcast should just be for the connections, just like how everyone, in the B2C world, everyone uses Instagram as their daily journal and to share about their life. The podcast should be in the B2B, B2B marketers' arsenal for sure.
Definitely, I think it's definitely a way to keep going and keep presenting yourself in terms of new content and challenging content. I don't know about you, but it helps me just learn things. I mean, I can read an article, but I always will remember my conversation with someone, and it'll just pop in my head that I had this great conversation and something they said popped up, right? And like you talk about experience, John Miller talks about experience. He was the founder of one of the co-founders of Marketo, and he was the co-founder of Engagio. So like he's like, MQLs, that's going to be the death of marketers. We need to focus on how to build a great market and great experiences, right? So it sticks in your head. So it's a great way to learn too, and grow. And I get awesome feedback from people. I'm sure you do as well. Nothing makes me happier than when someone writes to me about what we're up to or just calls me. Okay. What's your personal moonshot? Like
this year, next 3 years, or
could be a life moonshot.
I really am passionate about just building a strong community, and if I can figure out a way to turn that into a living and not just have that be secondary, would be awesome. Just big on community. That has kind of been my life since 2017. Like being able to turn it into something like an actual full-on business would be really, really cool.
So if I asked you the question, if money was no object, would that be your job?
That would be it. Yeah. Unfortunately, as you know, with community, like a podcast, everyone has a community, and so it's very hard to monetize the community, and it's not a game that I want to play in. So it's something nowadays. It's I focus 80% of my time on building Clifford, my startup. Probably 10% of my time on the podcast, and then the remaining 10% on community building. That's cool. Kind of like my split nowadays.
All right. How about this? Tell me the second thing you love. You already told me the first thing. What's the second thing you love?
This podcasting. I like having these conversations. Yeah, I love having these conversations. I also don't, similar to community building, I don't make a lot of money at all, just enough to kind of pay the bills, pay the people that work on the podcast, and for me, that's enough. And just having these conversations, you and I would have never met had it not been through podcasting.
Right. Through one of my folks, Taryn Talley, she heard about you, loved your podcast, went to your event, worked with you on your live one that you had in the Bay Area, and I was able to listen to a couple of your couple of really awesome guests and bring them onto the show. So I really appreciate that. I've learned a lot from you. I love listening to your podcast. So I really appreciate having you on. I mean, it's been amazing.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me on. Thank you for this. And hopefully your guest got some some tidbits, some nuggets here and there.
Well, I think, and I learned a lot just talking to you. I mean, you saved me from getting onto TikTok and spending a lot of time there. So I appreciate that, because I get a lot of folks saying, "Hey, jump onto TikTok and do your hot take," and I'm like, I don't know if I'm the hot take kind of guy. So
yeah, YouTube.
YouTube's the way. YouTube. I like your point about YouTube. So I will definitely. We did more LinkedIn and the other channels, and we do YouTube. And so now, based on your advice, I'm going to do more YouTube. So, and we're doing YouTube Shorts now. So LinkedIn's I heard you also do some comedy.
Oh yeah, we do like memes.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of meme. I mean, it's meme culture right now. Everybody it's into memes. Just go with the culture right now.
It's awesome. It's awesome that you can see it and sense it and then pick up on it and drive it. So it's really cool. So Simon, just a thrill to have you here. Thank you for doing this with me, especially from South Korea.
Likewise.
And, enjoy your travels. Hope to see you in the Bay Area. Look forward to meeting you in person. And let's do more shows together. This will be fun.
Let's make this a regular. We'll get you on my show. Let's just visit each other's show back and forth. We'll be regulars.
I'm in. Great to have you on, Simon. Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you.
Well, that was really interesting. I like having Simon on there. He's had so many CMOs and founders of substantial companies on his podcast that it's great to meet with someone that's met and talked to all these people and used his platform as a way to learn and build community and grow and scale. And he's taught me a few things. One thing that we didn't talk about that he mentioned was that when he launches an episode, he actually sends a calendar invite. And so that he and his guest or guests can all start sharing at the same time. So really great stuff to learn from him and see the variety of experiences and learn about what makes folks like Simon tick. As he mentioned, it's something he loves to do. He's passionate about doing, and it's less about money and more about great connections. But I can tell you, it'll pay off for him. Great guy, and just a lot to learn from him. And anyone that can do 100 of anything is someone you have to respect, especially with the type of growth he's experienced over time and, just the pure perseverance of it. So I love having him on. If there's one thing I could impart from what I learned today, it's just that power of commitment and passion put together. And what I liked about Simon in that is that he just said that he was there to learn. It wasn't, he says personal brand, but it was really about his just passion about learning about marketing. And really for him, it was about community. That's marketing to him. And frankly, that's what it should be. I think there's a lot to learn from him. And I take that to heart because it's something that I care about all the time. It relates, it feels really right to me. So thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the pod, please take a moment to rate it and comment. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere podcasts can be found. The show is produced by Anand Shah and Sandeep Parikh, production assistant by Taryn Talley, and edited by Sean Marr and Aidan McGarvey. I'm your host, Rajiv Parikh from Position Squared. We are a leading AI-centric growth marketing company based in Silicon Valley. Come visit us at position2.com. This has been an Effin' Funny production, and we'll catch you next time. And remember, be ever curious.